Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to part 10 of this astrology course. Oh, there's a hair flickering in front of the camera. So, we've been on quite a journey already, looking at the elements, and then we looked at the quadruplicities of the signs, and then we started to look at the planets. The planets are like subpersonalities, our subpersonalities. So Venus is all about what we love, and Mars is about how we act. And so far we've got as far as Saturn. So we've been moving out from the Sun, and we have talked as far as Saturn, which until the mid-18th century was all that we knew about the cosmos, because that was all that we could see. So since then, since technology has really taken off, and we've had better and better telescopes and microscopes, we've been able to see further and further and further and further out into the cosmos, and we're finding more and more bodies in our solar system going around the sun. And being astrologers, we're always like, I wonder how these affect us. So obviously mid-18th century, we're looking at over 200 years of being able to explore the cosmos, and the first planets that were discovered we now have a pretty good handle on. And what we're noticing is that whenever a new planet is, or body, they're not all planets, is discovered, so to speak, is seen for the first time, it seems to correspond to an advancement in whatever is going on our planet. So the first outer planet that was discovered in the mid-18th century was Uranus. And Uranus coincided with a massive explosion in technology and the discovery of electricity, and that actually we have an ability to influence our environment in a way that had never really been experienced before. Prior to that, people could influence their close environment. They could go out and farm their fields and maybe bring in local laws and things, but it was or even national laws, but it was almost impossible to influence beyond that, or to actually harness an energy other than our own physical energy, or the energy of the sun directly in terms of growing food. With the discovery of Uranus, and I'm not saying that it was Uranus that caused this, but coincidentally our whole human consciousness expanded into new realms, and you'll find that a lot of significant poetry and fiction and art emerged during that time, as well as technology. And then I forget exact dates, but somewhere in the 19th century, Neptune was discovered. And with Neptune came the discovery of things like anesthetics and the Romantic period in the arts. And people started to become spiritual in a way that people had never been spiritual. The mass people had never been spiritual before. It wasn't actually that long ago that you could be fined for not going to church. And the accepted spirituality of all cultures was the dominant religion of that culture. But when Neptune was discovered, people started to broaden their concept of spirituality, and it became more spiritual rather than religious. And there was a big advent in in things like mysticism and going to clairvoyance and things like that. And so this was the influence of, this was what happened around the time that Neptune discovered. And then Pluto was discovered in the 1930s, which was the time when we were just beginning to harness the power of nuclear reactions and the devastation that could be caused by this power, but equally the incredible power that was available to us in order to transform our world and to transform our lives. And this is what Pluto is about. So I've drawn the 3 glyphs on this card. I'm going to hold them up, and you could take a screenshot if you're not familiar with the glyphs. So Pluto, oh, I do hope, oh, I just realised the writing's all back to front for you. Oh, I'm sorry. Pluto has 2 glyphs. This is the official glyph, and this is like a shorthand version. It's the one I tend to use, this little one down here. So we've got Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. And if you paid attention to lesson 9, you'll start to recognize these parts of the glyphs: the cross of materiality, the circle of spirit, and the crescent of the mind. Now, we call these 3 planets, sometimes they're called the transpersonal planets and sometimes they're called the generational planets, because their orbits are huge. I mean, like Saturn takes 29.5 years to go all the way around the sun. Uranus takes like 84 years. Neptune takes, I can't remember exactly, but it's like 180 years. And Pluto takes in the order of 250 years to go around the sun. So some of us will have a Uranus return. Uranus will come back to the place it was in when we were born. I don't think any of us are going to get a Neptune return, and certainly none of us are having Pluto returns. Although, just as a little aside, the US has its Pluto return in 2022. So the Pluto is coming back to the place where it was when America signed its Declaration of Independence. So this is a big year for America next year to have a Pluto return. That's the squirrels you can hear outside shouting at each other. So we call these the transpersonal or the generational planets because they're not under our control. So up until Saturn, we call these the personal planets, if you like. We have some control over these planets, if you like. We can work with them and we can direct them. The transpersonal planets tend to be out of our control. However, that doesn't mean to say that we can't work with them, which I'll talk about in a minute. They're also called the generational planets because they move so slowly. Like Uranus will take approximately 7 years to go through each sign. So anybody born within 7 years of your birth date or my birth date will have Uranus in the same sign. Neptune can take something like 12 years, 14 years to go through a sign. So anybody born within 12, 14 years of your age will have Neptune in the same sign as you. And Pluto can take anything from 12 to 20 years to go through a sign. And we do find that these Pluto generations tend to be very significant. It's like each generation coming through in a new sign, Pluto in a new sign of the zodiac, has a specific role to play in its cultural context, if you like, of that particular generation, that particular age group coming through. So what are they all about? So Uranus at its simplest level is about change. If you think about lightning or electricity or sudden events, and it's like suddenly something can happen in our lives, or we have an understanding, a very sudden understanding, and suddenly like everything is different, everything changes. Unfortunately, it can often be something quite dramatic that we might not have wanted, like an accident or something like that. So it is really useful to know when you have a Uranus transit coming up, because you can be a bit more careful. Neptune, people find it really hard to put their finger on what Neptune is all about, because it's so elusive. It's like a fog. And it's all about our dreams, our imaginations, our illusions and delusions. And Pluto, as I've already said, is about power. And when we have a Pluto transit, especially if we don't know it's coming, this can often feel like the rug being pulled out from under our feet, where everything is like, people often feel quite depressed when they've had a Pluto transit, and they can last for quite a long time. Pluto transits can last, all these outer planets, the transits can last for a very long time, because if they're going backwards as well, then they'll last, even longer. So a Pluto transit could easily last 2 years. But remember, I look at everything from the 3 levels, yeah? So you've got the unconscious, the sleeping level, you've got the waking up level, and you've got the superconscious level, the very awake level. So let's look at these 3 planets in terms of these 3 levels. So Uranus, you're not very awake to what's going on, you're just, doing your life, doing your thing. You get a Uranus transit, boom, like this. It's like, whoa, what on earth happened there? And suddenly everything changes. Maybe you had an accident and broke your leg and you can't go to work. Whoa, my life has changed. Now it's going to be like this for the next, 6 weeks, 2 months, and you've got this opportunity. I mean, often we don't like change, we like Saturn, that's stable and secure. So a Uranus transit can feel very, very uncomfortable. In fact, all 3 of these planets, the transits can feel very uncomfortable, like completely out of our control. With Neptune, it's like we can be led down a complete and utter fantasy. Often, we might fall in love with someone and just think, oh, this is my heart's desire. I know this is my heart's. I know that we're meant to be together forever. I love this person so deeply. We've been together forever. It's karmic, it's soul, it's twin flame, all that sort of stuff. And you come out of the Neptune transit and you look at them and you go, oh, didn't realise you were a real human being with difficulties. I can't live with those. That's a very classic sort of Neptune transit. And at worst, Pluto is about extreme loss. That somebody very close to us passes away or is very, very, very sick. I'm not going to go through the list because I don't want to trigger people's traumas, because you'll recognize some of these, because we all have Pluto transits. You know, we may not have many of them, but Pluto will be triggering things in our charts every few years or so, and it involves a lot of loss. So these are the very unconscious ways that these planets can hit us. At the waking level, it's all pretty much the same. It's like, I don't think this world is exactly how I've been brought up to believe it is. I think something's different going on here. I think I could work with the energies of the universe rather than being so impacted by them. I think I have some power. I think I have some control. I have some choice. So then we look at the very superconscious levels, the very awake levels. And these are all about working with the universe, asking, what is it that you want me to do? Where is it you want me to be? Who is it you want me to be? So with Uranus, the highest sort of like definition of Uranus is universal creativity, or universal mind, or universal intelligence. And it is about channeling that creativity. If you look at anybody who is particularly creative and inventive, they'll often have a very strong Uranus, or they've been through a strong Uranus transit. And it's about quietening our mind, quietening our intellects, so that we open them up to inspired thoughts, inspired ideas. Oh, yeah, I could do it like that. Wow, I've never thought of that before. And the weird thing is that often these are like zeitgeists, and you'll come up with this amazing idea, and then like it pops up all over the place, and you realize that this idea has landed in the consciousness of many people, and so it is then brought into material reality. The highest awareness of Neptune is about unconditional love. Neptune, as I said, it's like a fog, it's about merging. So when we are able to be in a place of unconditional love, that's where we open our hearts to everyone, including ourselves. There's no negative talk. We just know that we are all loved and all held in love. That is a Neptunian experience. It doesn't happen very often because our minds are very powerful, and we've been very, very conditioned to, in our self-talk, to believe that we're not divine beings. So Neptune is all about knowing that we are divine beings, and that we live in love, and that we are held and cherished so dearly in love. Then the highest of Pluto, I interpret it as the will of God. Okay, other people may say something different. When I see that I have a Pluto transit coming, I know I need to really listen very carefully to what it is that the universe is asking of me. And it's about power, but it's not power over, which like the lower form of Pluto would be. It's about how to come into our own power, to know the power that we have to transform our own lives and our environment, and for the whole. And that could be in really small ways. It doesn't have to be something massive. We don't have to go and, like discover nuclear fission or something like that. It could be purely in the the love and the devotion that we give to someone close to us who needs us. It could be in our community, that we are able to see a need in our community and we know that we have the resources and the power to meet that need. So it's about listening. They're all really about listening. Listening. What is being asked of me? What is being offered to me? Where do I need to align myself in order to be of best service to this material world that I live in? Because these 3 planets are also called the spiritual planets, and they are our connection to source. Well, they have been. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in the next video, but up until really recently, until before we knew that there were actually even more bodies beyond Pluto, they have been our connection to the divine, to God, to universal consciousness, whatever it is you want to call it, our connection to oneness. And they have invited us to leave behind this sense of being an individual body that is only responsible for my own individual life, and that I have no impact on anything that goes around me, or let alone on the other side of the world or the other side of the universe, which we now know is not true. We now know from the butterfly effect and metaphysics and all sorts of things, that actually every thought we have is creative, it manifests and is a vibration and affects the entire planetary vibration. Every thought, every feeling. So then we have the responsibility, which is Saturn, to make sure that all our thoughts, all our feelings, all our actions are as closely aligned to the divine will, the divine power, the divine love, the divine energy that connects us all, that is as closely aligned to that as we can be. It's a life journey, and when we know our astrology and we know when these planets are going to be triggering us, we can learn to work with that opportunity. It's just such an amazing opportunity for personal growth and for personal change and development, to bring us more into alignment with the universal whole. Love you all, and look forward to talking to you in the next lesson.